On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we work on the R8 engine, just a little bit. What is going on, guys? I'm WatchJRGo, and today we are out here in the garage with the engine that is freshly out of my Twin Turbo R8 V8. Look, I even called it a V8 correctly this time. Still wish it was a V10, but today we're going to try to make a little progress. I'd like to get the transmission off tonight, but I don't know if I can go that far. We're just going to see how far we're going to go. I know we're going to get the exhaust manifolds off. I bought the O2 socket wrench set there. It's the special sockets for O2s that let you pull those off super easily. They're split, so you can work on them while the wires are attached to the sensors. The engine's still hanging in the air right where we left it, and this M&P pump Flowmax 8 that I was trying to sell turned out to be the perfect stand for this thing to sit on to keep it from falling down if the hoist loosens up overnight. And I did take our knocker loose, and I sprayed down all of the manifold bolts and all the O2s, and I just hit them again because you can never have enough lube on these parts that get really hot and rust into the metals. So this is what the R8 engine looks like right now. It's honestly a neat, compact package while being ridiculous, of course. Here's the intake, dual throttle bodies. Here's the DI pump, I assume. There's fuel inlet right there. You can see the coils, you can see the exhaust. The primary catalyst is right there in the exhaust, and there's the front and back O2, which is absolutely crazy. There's 3 inches between those things. Here's the inside of a good cat. Everything looks wonderful. You can see it's just ready to rock and roll. You can see the sensor hanging out in there. And here is the one that melted. Take a look inside that flex pipe right there. You can see the catalyst material is toast. But with that said, today I'm going to start by cleaning the garage up a little bit. It's still a mess from when we pulled this engine. I'm going to take a bunch of high dry and start trying to dry the floor a little bit over here where it's a huge mess. There's still fluids coming out of this thing. And once I get this all covered with high dry to start kind of soaking up all the spill, I'll hop back over here on the engine and we'll start tearing some things apart. I'll label this guy right after this. Not bad. O2 sensor is absolutely covered in oil. Easier than you'd expect. Big wrench got it done. Still, lots of oil on another O2. So there's a spring mount here. There's like a factory poly bushing that holds the exhaust hanger onto the shield for the CV right here. And I guess we could pull that bolt. Actually, I might pull these triple squares and leave the exhaust attached for now, just so I know what I'm dealing with. Exhaust manifold nuts are 12s. And that's how easy it is to get the manifolds off this, apparently. It took like 2 seconds. Bag them and tag them. Maybe the easiest manifold I've ever taken off in my life. The bottom has like a angled flange, and it sits into another angled flange, and you just tighten down the top bolts to wedge it onto the mount. That's actually incredible. I'm pretty thrilled about that engineering right there. Rinse and repeat on the passenger side. I'm gonna pull all of the bolts this time for that shield. And here's our O2 wrenches. Let's go ahead and get these O2 sensors off here. I was able to use my 7/8 O2 sensor wrench both times on this side of the engine, which does make your life a little bit easier here. The O2 sensors on this side look like perfect combustion. So much better, a little bit of carbon, but nothing like the oil-soaked ones on the passenger side. On the driver's side of the engine, the bracket is completely different, which holds the exhaust. And you'll need a 10 ratchet wrench to get in there and loosen that up. It goes behind where the CV bolts up. It looks like next up we could get the motor mounts off here if we pull these 10s and then head in there with those triple squares. That would let us access a AC compressor, which is shaft driven here from the gearbox or from the flywheel. Insanity right there. The power steering pump is also driven off that. More insanity. This was just not meant to be worked on, that's for sure. You can see the dry sump oil in and out right there. That's where all the magic happens for the dry sump system itself. I had to pop those off to get the engine out. A lot of you are probably thinking, why are you taking the shield off the motor mount? Well, because the bolts to get the motor mount off sit under the shield. Otherwise, I would definitely not be doing that. So the motor mounts are M12, it looks like, triple squares. Hopefully the impact can pull these. No such luck. Bet this comes off. Easy as pie. To make things even more insulting, you have to pull this top bolt before you can get to the third bolt on the motor mount. This thing is just adventure after adventure after adventure. Now that that's off, I can get the sensor off, and once that sensor is off, I can pull out the last bolt and then put this back together. There is a bonus though. Now we can see the AC compressor drive. I think you have to do all of that work just to change the AC compressor. How insane is that? There used to be a 10 over here that, oh, this is that clamp I had to cut to get the alternator wires off. All right, I'll leave that there. It'll remind me that I have to fix that when it goes back together. Uh-oh, got a clamp on this one. It's time to get real interesting on you guys. The alternator is water cooled and it makes absolutely zero sense. So we got to pull these hose clamps off here. These should be easy enough to identify. Whole bunch of coolant just dropped out. And you can't take this mount off without pulling the alternator. So I guess next up we pull the accessory belt and the alternator. Well, just like any other car, the accessory belt on this one should be easy. Honestly, there's not much tension on there. Wiggle it off the tensioner here. I did already loosen the 12 that is on the tensioner. This thing is tight. Okay, we got it. That's the serpentine belt. It literally does nothing but run the alternator. We are back. I'm here with Jake, who knocked off my t-shirt design. What is this Supreme looking shirt? Anyway, we're gonna get back to work on this. I got a haircut real quick. I wanna get the alternator off and I got a roll of tape, another roll of orange tape, which is what we were waiting on here. So we can start labeling stuff like passenger front O2, passenger rear O2, alternator, control. Yeah, we're just gonna start labeling as fast as possible. I'm gonna put tape on everything and then we can start pulling it off. We can get the alternator off. The water lines are disconnected to the alternator and maybe we can get the transmission off since we have two people. So Jake, what are your opinions on water cooling the alternator? Unnecessary?
Why?
Possibly dumb? It was the Germans. Also, the alternator is a one-way clutch too. Look. Yeah, spin it. Spin it hard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I can feel it.
You can feel it only engages one way. Which makes sense. I've seen a lot of alternators with one-way clutches.
I guess.
Motor mount load sense. That's what this is. Passenger motor mount load sense. What? The motor
load sensors?
Yeah, the motor mounts have load sensors or some kind of force measurement, deflection measurement.
For why though?
Because Audi R8. We didn't know what all these coolant lines were because there's so many of them. Eventually we started just labeling each end like 1 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. Like the vacuum lines are labeled like that because it's such a disaster. So yeah, there's like 50 vacuum lines. We don't even know what the point of half of them are. So we just labeled each end. That way we could put them back. Well, Jake, you want to pull the alternator?
Let's do it.
It's all you.
I'll need a couple 14s.
It's all you. You ready?
I'll catch it.
There you go. Easy peasy. All that's left is pulling all these triple squares and putting it all back together. Good luck.
That's silly.
Look how nice those labels are. And I'm even labeling everything by side. It's all labeled driver, passenger, because there's just so much nonsense. Okay, I guess that's our stopping point for today. It seems like I got something done because I started moving all the harness stuff and we pulled tons of plugs off. We probably labeled like 15 different connectors. Can you imagine just the insanity that this engine is compared to every normal engine in the world? It's just mind-blowing. So we took off the with the VVT solenoids there, some of these intake hoses, the harness is at least hanging down here and all the interior harness is separated. Alternator's off. Man, a lot of stuff actually got done, just the transmission isn't off yet. So that's where we're headed here, and all this stuff's labeled. It's insane. I was like, well, we could get the harness off tonight. there's no way. I mean, you're kind of halfway to the point where the intake has to come off to get the harness off. There's water temp there, all of these high temp wires that run into the valley. It's just insanity what all has to come off. And the problem is, a lot of it, I don't have the manual, so we're just guessing. So we're gonna have to start numbering everything, and that means you have to label both sides and number them and make sure the labels don't come off. So like these vacuum solenoids that run into the intake valley, no clue what those do. They kind of look like they might control these variable intake runners there, and there's like vacuum diaphragms that run those. I'd love to get the intake off. I'd love to get the transmission off, but I think I'm gonna need a few more people because we're gonna have to literally just pick up the transmission by hand. We can't jack it up because the lift is clearly holding the engine right now. It also doesn't help that there's 2 of everything. 2 throttle bodies, 2 MAFs, 2 ECUs, you know, obviously coils on each side, that makes sense. And then we've got dual fuel pumps with dual, like, I guess pump RPM or something like that. And then there's a fuel pressure sensor right after that. It's just wild, 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 wild. 15 different water temp sensors, intercooler water temp, this rear coolant pipe water temp. I promise you guys, I'm not dragging this on. It just takes hours to do each thing. We're just out here putting labels on things and slowly taking them apart and bagging all the bolts and other hardware that comes off. And we're getting it done. It will get done. But I'd like to get the other engine over here and have something to reference. I need to get it out, put it on some kind of stand as well, and then start moving things as fast as I can. Otherwise, I will definitely start forgetting where things go. And the fuel pumps probably didn't move immediately too. That's a fun one. Everything's hardlined for that. And there's like a hard crossover under the intake valley that's bolted to the intake. It's just a mess, especially without a manual. It's a really big mess, and even worse, the turbo stuff. So, like I said, I'm not dragging this on, not trying to make a bunch of videos out of it. It's just taking that long, and I want to make sure everybody can follow along. So we're getting it done, and the other engine will probably come over really soon. I got to get the Goldwing out of here permanently. Or if you want to buy the Goldwing, let me know. Now, I'm off to SEMA. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. Jake made sure we got everything labeled. We've got that label right there. It's pretty important.
Big Shack.
Big Shack. What's up? We need more Big Shack quotes. There used to be Big Shack quotes on the channel back in the day.
2 + 2 is 4.
-1, that's 3. Quick maths.
Which one's broken? Which one of these is
this cylinder is a dead one, I think.
-1.
-1. So that's 3. Anyway.